We're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. I think Hero and Recharge, we have both grants with us today, and we're going to learn how
As
we
a
can
district,
use.
as the Wortland schools combined, what do we have? Our strengths.
Whoa, hold on.
The W.
Wait. Okay, there we go. We're going to learn how we can create some maker opportunities in our curriculum. Becky Zeisel, is that correct? I
That
hope
is right,
I'm saying that
yes.
correct. Okay, so I'm going to hush. I'm going to stop talking and we will get started. Thank you all for being here. Remember to turn your cameras on so we can see your beautiful smiling faces, even if you're still snowed in. So glad you're here, but please be safe if you're driving and don't feel like you have to type anything in the chat. So thank you all for being here today. Take it away, Becky.
Hi, I'm Becky and I work at Kid Museum and I'm so excited to be with you guys today. I know some of you guys were in our last session and some of you guys are new. My colleague Sydney is here as well and you'll hear from her in a little bit as well. But we are excited to do this kind of series and this is one of a couple sessions, and at the end I'm going to preview what we're doing next so you guys can get a sneak peek into next time to see if you want to come. I know it has been exhausting and tiring, but I'm hoping this can be kind of a fun, relaxed build and get some ideas that you guys can take back to the classroom. So I am going to share my screen. I am going to share just a little bit about Kid Museum, and then we're going to dive right in. If you guys have questions, please put them in the chat. Sydney and I are looking at the chat, and we will answer as we go. Or unmute yourself, raise your hand. We'd love to hear from you. So we work at Kid Museum, which is an educational nonprofit that has a mission to equip youth with the skills needed to invent the future. And we are in Bethesda, Maryland, which is just outside of Washington, D.C. If any of you guys are in the area ever, come visit. We'd love to have you see our space and meet you and hear all the amazing stuff you do. So today we are going to talk about maker learning and how to integrate maker learning into your curriculum. If you were with us last time, we talked about design challenges and a way to spark student creativity and to spark student creative thinking and really get students to be problem solving. And we're going to dive into that a little bit more. And we're going to get into some more cardboard skills because cardboard is one of our favorite materials because it's free. And so Sydney's going to teach you a bit about some cardboard skills and show you some tools. And then we're going to kind of have a brainstorm together about how to add maker learning to your classroom. So like I said, any point, pause me, stop me. Love to answer questions, let me know. And I'll give you my email at the end too. So maker learning is just the idea of students creating things. And maker learning can be used a couple different ways in curriculum. It could be used to teach a new concept. So for example, if you're teaching math and you're teaching fractions, you could have your students take and build a display that is different fractions and like really makes them hands-on and shows them. If you're teaching history, that's actually what we're gonna do an example from today, but you could teach a historical event and show. I saw a really cool teacher who was teaching about ancient Greece and he had his kids research different buildings from ancient Greece and then build representations of them. And they had to do it to scale and figure out all the math for that. You can also use maker projects as a way for students to express understanding of a concept. And that's the way that a lot of people use them. You've taught your unit on cells and students are going to build a model of a cell. You've taught your unit on, this is actually my favorite project as a kid. We were doing vocabulary words in my ELA class and we all had to build a representation of one vocab word to share with the class. And I still remember I cross-stitched a design. And one of my favorite ways to use Maker Project is as a station or a small group alternative to a project. Oh, instead of writing this essay, you're going to create puppets and scenes to illustrate the concept. Or next time we're going to dive into stop motion animations and making videos. And so I'm going to come back to this idea, but when you're thinking about maker projects, it doesn't just have to be the final project. They really work well integrated in a lot of different places. So here's what I want you guys to do. We're going to dive in and do some interactive things now. I want you to take 30 seconds and grab an ordinary object that is near you. Any object. Everybody grab something that is near your body right now. It does not matter what it is. Okay. I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen. Okay, now everyone should have an ordinary object. I grabbed a paperclip, and I want you guys to reimagine a way to use that object to help people to communicate without speaking. So for me, I'm going to take my paperclip and I'm going to reimagine, how could I use a paperclip to help people communicate without speaking? What I want you guys to do is in the chat, if you have that capability, or if you want to share out loud and unmute yourself, what object did you pull and how can you reimagine it? Would anyone like to share the object that they grabbed near them and how they reimagined a way to use that object in a different way?
Well, I kind of cheated because I grabbed an ink pen.
It's not cheating, it's clever, your creativity. There you go.
Grab a highlighter.
I see
I'm-
markers to write words and draw a salt shaker because you're having a snack. Oh, you could use salt to spell out words like you do in Sand. I love that.
Grabbed a toothpick,
A toothpick. How could you use a toothpick to help people communicate without speaking?
dip it in something and write with it, or scratch the letters with it, or
Ooh,
You
and somebody
pick
private chatted
multiple
me that they could use their toothpick to put Morse code. They could or Braille. They could put the letters in. I love that. Diamond dots. Ooh, I like
For
it that you have
me,
diamond dots just near
you could-
you as you're sitting at a desk.
A haircut, puppet, that's in the chat.
I see a hair clip could be used as a puppet, a head scratcher to water flowers. I like that.
For
Notebook.
me, these aren't ordinary objects in my house because I have 4 kids under 5, but I have 2 magic wands. I also teach preschool. But you know, we love to get creative and you can spell out words in the air. You can use these, right, of course, to play, or you can use them to give clues that take the person to guess what you actually want. All kinds of
Oh, I
things.
love that so much. That's so great. I see Cindy grabbed a hair tie, bending and forming shapes, keys, you could jingle them. I love that. So this is an activity I use as students as a like a do now or a brain starter to like get them thinking creatively. How can you use something different? You can do it different ways. I've also done it where I give everyone the object and they have a paper clip and you have to think of as many uses for a paper clip. You can use it to hold paper. You can use it to write. You can use it to carve. You can use it to poke people. You can use it to eat as a fork and have students come up with as many ways as they can. And then I'm going to share my screen again with you guys. This is an activity that another way I like to do it with students. This is from somebody called That STEM Guy. He's got a Teachers Pay Teachers and an Instagram and all those things. But he does it's not a worksheet, and it's like a 5-minute activity where you can see in the paperclip one, he's got the start of a paperclip, and in the robot one, he's got the start of a robot. And then they had to draw. It's not a paperclip, it's a cactus. It's not a robot, it's a hidden temple. And I find these as a really good, quick, fun, you have 5 minutes left in the period. Hey, everybody, how can I use these Post-it notes to protect myself from rain? Something quickly to help students' creativity and kind of spark that thinking. It's super fun. Kids love it. It can be a fun way to start maker challenges or to kind of sprinkle in. So if you want any of these templates, you can get them from That STEM Guy who uses them. So now that we've done that, we are going to talk about translating maker skills into a project. And we are going to give you guys an example project to think about. And I know some of you guys are history teachers, some of you guys are preschool, some of you guys are librarians. We're going to take a historical concept because a lot of teachers teach historical concepts and think about how we can have students interact with that and do a project to show what something means to them. And so this is a project you could tweak in a lot of ways, and we'll kind of talk about that more. But before we dive into the actual part of the project, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys a couple tools that I like to have around, and that I know last time I showed some people some tools and they really wanted some more, so I brought some more. And then Sydney's going to show you some different techniques. So I'm going to hold this up. This is called a Clever Cutter. They cost about $1 to $2 depending on prices that day. And what it is it is a safe way to cut cardboard. And so you can see right here, I can't cut myself even if I wanted to, but I can take cardboard and it just slices, oops, that was bad, right through cardboard really easily. So my kids, my own personal daughter has been using this since kindergarten as a way to cut cardboard when it's really tricky to cut cardboard. Sorry, I should stop screen sharing so you guys can see me better. Thank you, Sydney. It's called the Clever Cutter. I don't know why they changed them to K's. It's a constant mystery in my life, but it's a really safe way for kids to cut cardboard. And we use them kindergarten through high school here. Another tool that I use with older kids or for me, this is called a Zip Snip. And it is an electric cardboard cutter. So when I was a classroom teacher, I was the teacher who said, hey, custodians, hey, cafeteria people, please save me every cardboard box you have. And then I would spend like hours of my day cutting them down and piling cardboard. And then I learned about this, which, hoping you guys can see, is an electric tool that zips right through cardboard. So if you have to break down boxes into pieces that are usable cardboard for kids, it is basically like a little bitty electric saw that cuts through cardboard like it's butter. And I love it so much. Highly recommend. I have one for like teacher purposes more than for kids. And then the last question I got from a lot of teachers was, if you're working with students with special needs, with motor delays or other things, scissors can be really hard. And so we use a lot of different kind of scissors here at Kid Museum. These are the most intense ones, I should say. These are EMT shears. These are literally what the ambulance people use to like cut your seatbelt and cut your clothes. They're very sharp and they cut cardboard beautifully. And we use these with probably 3rd grade and up. But we have these other scissors, and I can put a link in the chat later. These are accessible scissors. Cardboard behind it so you can see it. These are accessible scissors, and so they have this loop at the bottom. And so they're easier for kids to use if they have motor delays. And so we always have a couple of these around. Again, my kindergartner loves these. She doesn't have motor delays, but she loves using them because they're like a little easier to get a grasp on. But these are a really great scissor to have around if you have students who have different needs for these adaptable scissors. And so Sydney is putting in the chat some links. Honestly, we get everything off of Amazon, so I can put some Amazon links in there while Sydney is showing you some cardboard techniques so that you'll have them all. But I wanted to show you these tools because these are things that I think make making easier in your classroom. And they're a great thing that if your school has some money, you can get a maker kit that teachers can share, or the art teacher can have these, or the STEM teacher, or the librarian can have a set. But they really make it easier than just having the plain scissors. So I will get some links. I will put those in. And what Sydney is going to do is she is going to say hi and then put her screen down, and she is going to share a couple different cardboard techniques that we teach students. So give us a minute because I have to mute myself and she has to unmute herself. That'll take 20 seconds and then she will be sharing with you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sydney. I'm a senior maker educator at Kid Museum. Real quick, I just put in a link in the chat for some additional adaptive scissors that I've seen art classrooms also use. So in addition to the links Becky will be posting, that's in there. But I'm going to jump into our cardboard techniques that we most commonly use with makers. One thing that we often show makers first is some cardboard techniques on a board similar to this. So we have these on tabletops where they're working. You could also do a version that's just a big poster, a slide on your whiteboard, anything that just shows visually some techniques. Sometimes we'll do some close looking with the techniques with the students. The main ones I'm going to point out to you now are scoring that allows us to get bends in the rigid cardboard. I'll talk a little bit about hinges, and I can also show some slot and connect as well. So there are many different cardboard techniques. Those are just a few of our most commonly used ones. So I'm going to tilt my screen down so you can see my table now. So I've got cardboard in front of me. This is regular corrugated cardboard. And the first tool I'm grabbing is the Clever Cutter, but you could also grab scissors, any type of scissors, or even for this one, I'm going to be showing scoring. You could also use a push pin, anything that has a point that you can use. So if I'm using my Clever Cutter, I actually use this dull end. And for scoring, I need to look at the edge of my cardboard and find the holes and go parallel to those holes. And I'm pushing down using force through my elbow and my arm to indent my cardboard. So those are the scoring. And now I can easily bend it. This is really good if I'm making a curve, but I could also do it for just straight 90-degree corners that I want to be very nice and sharp like that. So you could also do this with a pin or with scissors by holding just one of the handles, like this. And from scoring, I also might consider, if I'm doing a moving part, I could also consider a hinge. So for hinges, there are two types of hinges that we often use. The most simple of the hinges is to use your hole puncher. So we have standard hole punchers, and I'm not sure if Becky showed this already, but we also use some heavy duty hole punchers like this. But you would punch the holes in your pieces that you're trying to join. And then the most standard of our hinges is just a single hole, and that will create a pivot point. And I can use a brad to join those together. With very young students, I like to compare the brad to a banana peel. So I'm splitting apart the peel of the banana. Oops, you can see it better. So now I can have a hinged pivot point. Or I can do a hinge that is more like a door hinge or a spine of a book. And if I punch another hole or two, I can join that using my pipe cleaners. Or twist ties or zip ties, anything that can go through those holes and make a loop through them. So like this, and making sure that I twist them together. So those are some hinges. There are also some advanced hinges if you use the corrugations in the cardboard and a skewer. You can do kind of like a post that the cardboard can swivel around. But now I can hinge my cardboard that way. And the last one I want to show you, do you want to show Slot and Connect real quick? Last one is Slot and Connect. So this is a good one if you are trying to join two pieces of cardboard into a 3D construction. It's good for making right angles. So I cut a small slot in my cardboard that is the same thickness as my cardboard. And I'm cutting it halfway down each of my two pieces of cardboard. So now I have two that look like that. And then I just take those two and I align the slats perpendicular. And so I could use this to build structures that are attached like that. So those are some of our main techniques. And I'll show the board just one last time. So we looked at scoring, Slot and Connect, and hinges.
Amazing. I'm gonna unmute myself.
Okay. I'm hoping that you guys could see that and take some ideas. And like Sydney said, we would not stand up in front of a class for 30 minutes and be like, here are different cardboard techniques, because no student would pay attention to that. Instead, what we do is we have that cardboard technique board. And when I was a teacher, I just actually made a small one and I put it up on my wall, or we have tabletop ones here. If you look online and Google cardboard technique board, there's a ton of different examples. And then I use that to help students think about, oh, here are some different ways that you can level up your design. And so a great example is that Slot and Connect. If a kid is like, oh, my thing's not standing up, I can be like, let's look at this board. What are some techniques to help your project stand up better? Or with scoring, if kids are constantly gluing together pieces of cardboard, I like to show them the scoring because it makes that neat angle. So you don't have to glue two pieces together, right? I just score in the middle and now I can have an angle without using glue or tape incessantly. The other thing that I want to show you guys is there are different kinds of cardboard. The cardboard we use at Kid Museum, this is literally an Amazon box that I cut up before we got here. You can buy nice cardboard if you'd like. But one thing we do get a lot of is chipboard. And chipboard is like cereal box weight cardboard or tissue box weight cardboard. And so my kids' school asks parents to bring in boxes. And the reason I like the chipboard for younger learners is that you can cut it with the little kid scissors really, really easily. And so if you are an early based teacher or you're teaching kindergarten or first and you only have the little kid scissors, those sometimes struggle to cut real cardboard, but the chipboard, still cardboard, still strong, can still stand up, but is really much easier for little kids to cut. Okay, so now you guys have learned a few techniques and we are going to put them into action. We are going to give you an example maker project. And I am going to show you guys on my screen, and then I'm going to give you guys some time to gather a couple things because we are going to actually ask you to build. But I took a look at two different standards. I took a look at the social studies standards across Kentucky. And throughout the grades, kindergarten through high school, there were these standards about the roles and responsibility of a citizen and talking about cooperation and respect and understanding powers, or change and continuity and thinking about how things have been different in the past and the present, and these conflict standards. And so I started to think about how if I were a teacher, I could have my kids think about some of these concepts and put them into action. I also took at the library standards, and I read this preface for library media, and I thought it was really interesting as a way to think about that they want students to become self-sufficient individuals of good character, and they want them to connect and integrate experiences, new knowledges from across fields. And so Sydney and I came up with this design prompt that I'm going to tell you quickly, and then I'm going to take a step back. Actually, first, some of you guys got an email or found out different materials that you can gather. If you did not already gather materials, I'm going to give you guys about a minute to look around you and see if you can find something that is a strong material. It could be paper, it could be cardboard, it could be a Happy Meal box, it could be anything you want. If you have something stick-like, great. An adhesive, some kind of tape or glue. Sydney just showed you the brads and the pipe cleaners and the paper clips. If you can find a couple of these items, and if you don't, get a piece of paper and a pencil so that you can draw your idea. So I'm going to pause for a minute and give people some time. If you have access to any materials to build, we are going to ask you guys to build in just 1 second. So if anyone has any questions, while I give people a few minutes, a few seconds to find things, we are going to dive into a project in like 1 minute. Okay, here is what we want you guys to do. We want you to create, ooh, I apologize for the weird way that smushed on the screen. Create a monument for an event or a person in history. How can your creation share emotions and the history of that event? And so I created this lighthouse, which is too big to fit in the scene. So it is cardboard on top, and then the bottom is actually a soda bottle that I covered in popsicle sticks. And I had a circuit so I could make it turn on. But this is a monument that you could use for a lot of different events. So I want to show you this one that I created of common materials. And then I'm about to show you some other examples up on the screen of monuments that different people around here have made. So Sydney actually made this tree, and you can see that she layered different layers of cardboard together. Sydney, who is an amazing artist, also created this face out of different layers of cardboard that you can see up here. And then the picture at the bottom is a necklace that we created with brads. It's pretty much exclusively brads, and those joints are all moving around. So here's some example of some cardboard monuments to different historical events. And then here are ones made out of pipe cleaners. I gave my students a design challenge to just use pipe cleaners. And so there's a peacock, there is a flower basket that somebody made as a representation of Girl Scouts. And she talked all about weaving and Girl Scouts working together. And then the top is a origami crane because somebody was doing origami, and you can see they put actually a circuit light on it. But so you can make maker ideas out of a whole bunch of different materials. And so what I want you guys to do is create a monument for a particular event or person in history. How can your creation share the emotions in that history? And you guys are going to have about 10 minutes to build right now. And then we're going to have some sharing, and I want people to show what they've made. If you don't have any materials to build with, that's okay. take a minute and sketch. What would you build? You can literally pick anything that you would like, but the idea is how can your creation either share something about the historical context of that or the emotions that maybe happened in that event. Angela, I'm glad to hear that. I'm gonna stop sharing I'm gonna leave that up there, but I'm gonna put myself on mute so I don't just babble. And then I'm gonna look at all the beautiful stuff you guys are doing and I'll take the prompt down in just a minute. But if anyone has questions, put them in the chat. I'm excited to see what you guys make. About 10 minutes to build. If you are in the car and cannot build, please do not worry about it. We would love for the people who do have stuff, even if it's just paper, great. And if you can't, think about what you would want to make. That works too. I get real life constraints are a thing. But I do see some people making some cool stuff. I see some people moving around. Chelsea is making something that looks very cool and I can't wait to see what it is because I just see cardboard bent on the screen and then something bright colored. So that'll be fun to see. I see Stephanie working away. I'm not sure what she's making, but I'm excited. I see people folding some cardboard shapes. Ooh, I see somebody doing some origami with something somewhere. I'm curious to see what that is. This is the part where I miss being in person the most so that I can actually see what you guys are making instead of your beautiful faces. I'm going to chat a little bit as some of you guys are building for those who aren't. One of the things that I find my students really like is a prompt that gives them a direction, but is not so specific so that they have some creativity and some autonomy. And an example that we always use here is if you tell a kid to build a house, then you get a lot of like squares with triangles on top because that's what kids think of with a house. But if you tell kids to build a building, then they get to expand that definition and you get a lot more creativity and kind of the same result. And so we always kind of try to think about what our wording is when we're doing this type of design challenge so that it meets what we want them to get without telling them like, oh, everybody please build the Washington Monument. Or everybody please bring a representation of some historic, can you guys tell I'm not a history teacher, I was a science teacher, some other event. This can also be a great way to do a cross-curricular project if you are an art teacher or a library teacher or something like that, and you want to be able to bring in some of the things your students are doing in other classes. I'm going to give you guys about 4 or 5 more minutes to keep working on your creations, and then we're going to have a couple people share if you would be willing to. We would love it. Yeah, if anyone has any questions, now could be a really good time. I'm gonna give people about 4 more minutes. If you have things to build, 4 more minutes to get where you can get. We talk a lot about how there's no right or wrong way to finish a project. And where you get is great, and it's okay if it's not finished. And that can also help kids who have anxiety about it being perfect.
A lot of times we also talk about their 3D prototype just being another way for them to express their idea. So it also doesn't have to be perfect as long as it helps you communicate what you were thinking about. So the combination of a sketch plus a partially built cardboard prototype can fully explain your story.
Sydney and I also talked before this about online design and modeling online. I think that can be another great maker skill and have people learn with Tinkercad or other online sketching. Canva has been a really popular way for kids to make prototypes and show designs. Okay, 2 more minutes for those of you that are building, and then I'm going to ask for some volunteers to show what you made and what it represented. Okay, I think with that, I would love if anybody is willing to unmute themselves, hold up what they've built and kind of show us, tell us, what you built and why. I would love to see some of these amazing creations. I see some people really hard at work building things. Is anyone going to be brave? It's hard for me to call people out on Zoom.
I'll go first.
Thanks.
So I guess mine's like a monument to a favorite bedtime story, if that is okay.
That is totally okay. I like how you
Um,
interpreted the word monument to really fit your situation.
Yeah, okay. Well,
I love
thank you. We love the story Creepy Carrots. And I grabbed a can of formula box that I have, and then some spoons, because I thought that my preschoolers could do something. Of course, they would need help with the cutting to go in, but it would also serve as a great fine motor activity. It would serve for counting, and it's just super simple. And then I could even add numbers and colors on there. And it took me 5 minutes to make, if that. So there's my monument to Jasper Rabbit.
I really love that. And that can be a really cool project for kids to take a story that you love and make a representation of it. And what I love about that is you did a really good job with stuff around you, and it would feel attainable to kids. If you said, okay, everyone pick your favorite book and you make your version, don't make mine, make yours. Like they could all do that and see how you interpret it. That was a really awesome job. Thank you. And thank you for sharing, being the first out of the bat. Anybody else like to share what they made? I'm sure it's
I'm here to
wonderful.
share mine. I don't know if y'all can see it, but
That's
it's made
Michael
out
up
of,
there. Let me
it's
spotlight you
made
so
out of
everyone can see it.
pot cleaners.
Ooh, tell us about it.
And
What is it?
it's a lantern in representation of Paul Revere's ride.
Ooh, I love it. I also love that you have the sparkly pipe cleaners. Those are students' favorite things in the world, anything with glitter. So nice job, Michael. Thank you for sharing. And then I saw Angela, was that you who unmuted yourself?
Yes, so I'm more of a planner first. So I was sketching. I don't know if you can see it. I have it blurred, but I was drawing an umbrella. I was inspired by, I saw in India where they have these big sunshades that open up by like solar power by the sun. So I was thinking you can make a monument of like an umbrella that detects water, that if you were like visiting somewhere like the Washington Monuments or things like that, it could be a monument in honor of those who protect it. And then that would be like your shelter that was solar powered, but water sensitive.
Oh, I love that so much. I love that you took it as like a design challenge where you create an invention. We do that so often with kids and they really get into it. And it also makes me think about this idea of sketching. When we have time with projects, we always have our students sketch what they want to make. And one of the reasons I do that is I have them label the materials they're going to use, because then I can say, ooh, tell me more about why you need 50 pipe cleaners for your design and help them really moderate what do they actually need and want and think about how they can be creative with what we have. Thank you so much. That was really great, Angela. It's like one or two other people who would like to share. I'd love to see. And if not, that's okay.
You can also share in the chat.
You can also share in the chat if you just want to tell us what you made or what you sketched, what you would make.
I attempted to do Mount Rushmore. I wasn't able to finish, but I would use balloons, just drawing their faces. So that's what I was planning to do, but I couldn't finish it in time.
That is totally fine, and I love it. And this is something for you guys to think about too, is what are you going to do if kids don't finish? Do they get more time? Do they not? And that's okay too. But I think that's a really creative use of balloons. I think that's really fun. I see D. Daniels made the Gateway Arch. I went to college in St. Louis, and so I love the arch, and seeing how people make that is always fun. You guys are so creative and amazing. And so thinking about how you would give this prompt, a Big Ben tower. I traveled around the world looking at time zones for New Year's. Oh, that's really fun. Rachel, I'm going to spotlight you just so people can see it big. It's beautiful. Okay, I'll unspotlight you because I can see you don't like that. It is a gorgeous job. You guys did a really great work. So one of the things we do is, what are you going to make? And then what's the debrief afterwards? What's the point of this? And so I ask students a lot of questions. Sometimes if the point is creativity, I might just ask them like, what was hard? What was difficult for you? Or my favorite debrief question to ask the class is, what are you proud of that in your project? And it's really interesting to hear what students say, what they're proud of about their work. And so what I want to do for you guys is I want you guys to think about, if you were doing not even this design challenge necessarily, but a design challenge with maker materials where students are building something, how could this activate Kid Museum's mind of the maker? What did you guys have to think about today in our very, very short design challenge? Students probably would need longer. Which of these attributes could you see students using and learning and practicing? And you can put it in the chat, or if you prefer to talk out loud, that's okay too. So I saw some perseverance from a lot of you guys, because you were like, oh, I'm at home. I only have spoons and a formula box. What am I going to make? But you persevered through that and tried harder, so that when things were harder than you thought they would be. I see ingenuity. Yeah, you had to use your imagination and think of new ideas, and think of how to do things in a different way. Thanks, Adam. Exploration. Yep, trying new things, being curious, initiative. One of the things that I think is underrated in education, and I'm sure you guys all think and know this, is kids find it really hard to take initiative and start and make their ideas come to life, that beginning starting stage. And that's why sketching can be so useful. Teamwork, your daughter wanted to join in. I love that, Chelsea, always. Last Zoom I did, I was at home with my kids, and my daughter also joined in building the design prompt with us and showed it to everybody. So I can relate to that. Okay. So the point of that activity was not that I think that you guys could take this exactly back to your classroom, but to give you an idea of there's different ways that you can use common everyday materials to spark these things. And I want to highlight what Marissa just put in the chat. She said perspective. Kids, it's always interesting because they have such different experiences. There's also a lot of scientific research that kids don't build empathy and perspective for other people until they are like in middle school or higher. And what's fascinating to us is we do this project called the Backpack Project, where kids have to interview another kid in their class about what they would want in their ideal backpack. And then they have to go back and they have to build a model of that backpack. And what's really hard I do this with 6th graders often, but even younger kids, is they're like, I want to build a backpack for me, not for that other person. And I never really thought about what other people would want. And I had a student say that to me once, and they were shocked. They were like, I literally just never thought about how somebody else might want something different than what I would do. And so these projects can be a really great way to exercise those skills and get kids thinking that way. So I wanted to spend about 5 or 10 minutes. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually share a link to these slides. And what I have is I have made some slides where I want to give you guys some time to collaborate with each other, because that's what I always missed the most when I was a teacher, of getting ideas from other people and thinking about where can design challenges spark creative thinking in your students, and where could students demonstrate mastery of a standard in a new way. Where have you done something before, or what has popped into your head as we were doing this activity? And so what I did was I made different slides for some different groups of teachers. I've got a middle school history, just an elementary school generalist teachers, library teachers, digital arts and technology. If there is not a slide for you, you should copy a slide and make a slide for you, okay? I made a kind of an other category. I know we have some math interventionists here and other things. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stop sharing my screen, and I am going to put a link, if I can figure out how, a link to these slides in the chat. And what I want you guys to do is open the slides and go to, hopefully that'll work, and go to the slide, and it's on slide 14. And like I said, if there's not a slide for you, if you're like, oh, I am an art teacher, make a slide for you, copy it, change the heading so that other people can join you. And I want you to take a few minutes and type in your answers to these prompts. Where would this actually fit in your curriculum, in your standards? And if your site's too full, again, feel free to make a copy of it. Do what makes your life happy. We're starting on slide 14, and then there's a whole bunch of other slides that are identical. But take a minute. Where could this fit into your curriculum, into your classroom? Is it a indoor recess activity where you're having kids create? Are you a math interventionist and you're going to have students make manipulatives to illustrate different ideas? I'm not going to keep talking because I want to give you guys time. Just pick a box, type an idea. You guys know how to use slides. And I'm going to say brainstorming rules apply here. This does not have to be a great idea. It does not have to be a fully formed idea. It could be like, I think this would be a good way to have students think of new endings for a book. Instead of writing it down, they could build it. Any small, big, incomplete, complete. Don't be shy. Let's see what we've got. Well, I really like some of these ideas that are starting to get makerspace time in the library after read alouds. Yeah. And you could give them materials challenges. Today you're just building with pipe cleaners, or you could give them build a representation of a book. I can't remember if I said this to this group, but one of my favorite librarian projects I've ever seen was the kids had to build a food truck for a character in a book. And so, because apparently the kids were obsessed with food trucks. And so it was like, oh, if I am reading Life of Pi, what kind of food truck would the character from Life of Pi want to go to? And they had to like build a representation of it and then talk about why, and to write a paragraph about why that food truck would go for that book. An ancient Egyptian pyramid, rear character, persuasive writing, could just be for play. A 3D map of the area they're studying. Yeah, if you're talking history, there's a whole geography section. And that paper layering, cardboard layering technique I showed you in the tree, which is in here, you can use that to create maps, and create 3D maps can be really fun with kids. I really like these ideas. think for any subject area, create a representation of a vocab word to teach somebody else that vocab word or that concept can be a really powerful way for students to share their learning with other people, create things for Read Your Room that aren't just posters. Okay. I see some people still typing, so we're going to give it another minute. You guys are going to keep access to these slides, and I am actually putting in the chat a link to the folder with all the Kid Museum session slides. So if you want to see what some of your other colleagues put in a similar session to this one, or if you missed last session and want those slides, they're going to be in here. We talked a lot about challenges last time and doing STEM challenges or just design challenges in general. If you're talking about different biomes, create a house that would help people in that biome and they have to think about the desert or other things that can be really great. I see somebody put a similar prompt in. Oops. Want to give us one more minute to finish up some typing? Ooh, somebody wrote about following multi-step directions. Yeah, this can be a really great way. And one of the things that I always try to tell teachers is if you tell kids 20 steps up front about how to do everything, they're not going to be able to follow that. And so slower steps can be a really great way to do that. Okay. I'm going to give us a minute. If anybody has any questions for us at Kid Museum, again, my goal for you today was to start triggering your thought and how these types of design challenges and maker prompts can fit in your curriculum and help you address standards. I want to talk, somebody was asking me in the chat about materials and how you take care of them, because I know for me, when I was a teacher, materials was the hardest part of all of the hands-on work. And so what we do at Kid Museum is we have little containers that we can use for small things. So in this container, I have brads right now. And then we have bigger containers that are shoe boxes. And my biggest key to you is buy the same kind of container all the time, because then you can stack them. And basically when I'm going to do a maker project, I have a table set up in the back of my room that has the supplies that are available for that day. And so I have a shoebox of pipe cleaners and a shoebox of scissors and a shoebox of brads and that sort of thing. And students know that's what they can use. And I always end my time with a few minutes for students to clean up. And we talk about how it's their responsibility to be able to clean up and use these materials. And I find it's not really ever a problem. Once we make it feel like these are our materials as a classroom, kids will clean up. My one advice to you is students will use whatever you put out. So if you put out every pipe cleaner you own, students will use every pipe cleaner you own. If you put out every piece of expensive cardboard, they'll use it all. So I kind of put out what I want them to use in that class today. I want to show you guys what we're going to do in our next session together, which is in, honestly, next week, I think. We're going to talk about something called stop motion animation. And I want to show you guys an example of a stop motion animation, because some people asked me, what are we doing? What is that? What do I need to do? And you guys are going to have a chance to use a computer software to make one of these. But stop motion animation is where you take a series of pictures to make a scene. And so here is a stop motion that somebody here at Kid Museum made. And it's literally just, I'm going to play it again because it was so short. It is just a series of pictures turned into a video. And so I'm going to show you guys how to make these videos using just a computer browser on your computer, and then kind of whatever else you have around your desk. So that is another type of making that is not just cardboard. And so I wanted you guys to be able to see that so that you can know that not all making is cardboard. We also do a lot of technology and coding and other things. And so I want to give everyone a chance to learn that. And I see Dee in the chat put that she did a conference session with stop motion animation. Yeah, it's so fun. It's my favorite thing ever. Kids love it. And it's super, super easy and fast and a great way for your kids to tell stories. So I was leaving about 5 or 10 minutes here at the end. If people have questions or things that they want to ask us about making or have other ideas that they want to share with the group. And if not, that is kind of where we are, what I had for you guys today. And so I will put in the chat my email address. Oops. And I'm gonna put our Twitter handle as well. That's our X. X is what it's called now, not Twitter. I know that. But does anybody have any questions or thoughts or things that they could share with the group about I don't what you're doing and how you have found it useful? I'm trying to find our Instagram, but I can't find that, so I'll leave it with Twitter.
I know as a former English teacher, I have zero, or I feel like I have zero creativity in terms of building things and making things in my body. I don't think that I have that. But these activities, seem to be accessible to me. And there's something that I would use with my students, even high school students, as upper level as they can get. They love doing things with their hands. They love building things. So no, I love this.
Thanks. Yeah, no, I taught middle school and high school myself, and we did a lot of this as ways for kids to teach and display concepts. And I found that it really helped solidify ideas in their head. And one of the weirdest things that I realized happened during COVID, especially, is that kids stopped having access to materials and building. And so we worked with a teacher the other day who was a 4th grade teacher who her kids didn't know how to use scissors. And so she didn't want to do any making because her kids didn't know how to use scissors. And my reply to her was, how are your kids going to learn how to use scissors if you never give them a chance to use them? And so instead of just making whatever they want, framing it in the idea of design challenges where they're really applying the content and the other concepts, or they're using it as creating inventions or solving problems, can be a really great way for students to apply a lot of these higher order thinking skills that I know you guys are working so hard on.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, Jennifer, I'm going to stay on in case people have questions or want to
Okay.
share other things. And I know you have a survey that they do at the end.
I do. I'm
Just put
putting
in the
that
chat.
in. Yep.
But thank you guys. It was so great to meet all of you guys today. Like I said, I think it is next week that we are doing another session with you guys. I'm going to check the exact date for y'all, but I would love to see you guys back and to teach some stop motion animation. Yeah, it is next Thursday. In fact, we're going to do stop motion with you guys. So I would love to see some of you guys there for a different type of making. Thank you guys so
Awesome.
much. I'll stay on.
Thank you.
But
Okay,
if you
great.
have any
We'll stay
questions,
on.
let me know. And if not, do your evaluation and I'll turn it back to Jennifer.
Chelsea Bray, you've got lots of thank yous in the chat, but Chelsea Bray, you sent that just to me, so you might want to go back
Thank
and
you so
resend
much.
it to everyone. Great job. This time just flew by. Kara, same thing. Kara Kilgore, same thing.
Right, there's a very large fire truck line right behind me. Well, if you guys don't have any questions or anything I can help you with, I'm happy to materials, links, anything like that. But otherwise, it was lovely to meet
Awesome.
you all.
Okay. Thank you, Becky. Thank you, Sydney. Wonderful job. I can see teachers using every single thing that you all talked about today.
I hope so. Oh, and if you guys do, please tag Kid Museum on Twitter or Instagram or anything. We'd love to see what you guys make. I relogged
Yes,
my X account so I
absolutely.
could see this great stuff that you guys are working on.
Yes, don't forget to do that. I'm going to stop recording.